Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We finally hit 1,000 subscribers. That means I can finally bring this Q&A to you guys. And I want to thank you guys for getting me to 1,000 subs and for submitting all these awesome questions. Now, we couldn't get to all the questions because some of them were quite jarring and crude, and I'd probably get banned from the community and YouTube if I answered some of these questions you guys asked. But I hand selected and I chosen the best ones that I think are the most entertaining and would resonate the most for the community. So, before we begin, though, I have a quick announcement, and I have another more important announcement that has directly to do with the community that we're all a part of. But this first announcement has to do with my personal life. So, I actually decided to switch over to the master's program for psychology instead of English. Reason being is because I didn't fully resonate nor appreciate the contents in which we were examining within the English program. And I found myself thinking about psychology every single day. I think I'm meant to just pursue the the limitless avenue of the human psyche. And I find myself thinking about personality, human nature, and of course, the psyche and intelligence, the study of intelligence every single day. And this is what I want to pursue. This is what I want to make videos of is intelligence and the pursuit of it. So without further ado now, let's begin the Q&A. All right. So the questions pulled up over here. So first question, what's your opinion on the Class Elite fan base? All right, so this is a very. By the way, these are my raw, natural reactions to these questions. None of this is scripted. I didn't really get a chance to look at the questions beforehand. I just sort of picked out the ones that I think would be fun to answer. So you're gonna get my raw, natural reactions on everything right here. Okay, so my opinion on the classmate fan base. One, let's get to the crux of the matter, which is Ayana Koji. So we can't talk about the fan base without talking about Ayana Koji, right? I personally really do like Ayana Koji. I think his character is very fleshed out. I think he has a lot of depth to him. I think he's a very convoluted character as well. I think the author does a really good job of writing him because he has a cult following, and that's for good reason. So many people are infatuated with Ayana Koji, and they're infatuated with him because of one of the most simple concepts you'll see. He has a very convoluted and complex past, right? He's been through a lot, and he's fighting this battle between inhumane and humanity, right? And I think this pull and the traits that he develops throughout are very relatable to people. And the author does an awesome job because he'll do the most basic thing in the most simple and bland circumstances in which we go through every single day personally that we all experience. He'll experience those things and will constantly ponder like, oh, what is he gonna do next? What is he gonna think here? How is he gonna perceive this information here? How will react? How will he react to this notion of love in this circumstance? What is his relationship going to be like with this person? And so, and where we think about this because of his inhumane, but his humane personality, right? That he's trying to attain. And I think that makes him really cool. His intelligence is really cool as well. His entire being within the White Room and whatnot. And I think that Class of Elite fans as a whole are very passionate. They love Ayano Koji. They will defend him to their deaths, which is a cool thing to have, right? I mean, every fan base would love to have such passionate fans. Now, Class of Me light novel as a whole, it's not for me. It's just not. I think the side arcs are too drawn out. I'm not a fan of the crude sexuality, and I'm not a complete fan of the setting and whatnot. And that's probably because I'm out of, high school itself. A lot of Class of Elite fans are in high school. They're confined within a school, and so it's cool seeing another school, a more elite school, in which there's a genius that can resonate and that can manifest and grow and develop his um, human characteristics while also showing off his brilliance. And of course, having all the girls in that school fall in love with him, which I'm sure most of you would love to have. And as, as far as the fan base, every fan base has its ups and downs, right? Every fan base has its good and toxic people. For the most part, Class Elite fans, they know they're toxic. They know they're ignorant. They know they're arrogant. They know that they're going to belittle every other character for the sake of Ayano Koji's uprise, which is an interesting thing, right? Because they're aware of this. They won't deny this. Like, they won't. they'll be completely frank with you, which I find interesting. They're not delusional, these fans, at least on this side. But what I would advise the rest of us that aren't complete Class of Elite fans, I would advise us not to let the fan base ruin the character for us. We should disassociate with the negative connotations that the fan base brings and still be objective, analytical, and wise and discreet on how we approach Class from the Elite. But as far as the rest of the fan base, I talk to 15 to 20 Class from Elite fans, and they're all brilliant, they're all open minded, they're all considerate, and they're responsive to my counter arguments, my criticisms, and my qualms, which I genuinely appreciate. And I have a deep admiration for people that can put aside their passions and proclivities for certain works. But again, every fan base has its ups and downs. So that's all I'll say about Class of the Elite. All right, next question. What made you discover the Who is Smarter community? How do you feel about joining it? Okay. So I discovered the Who is Smarter community through TikTok. I saw people analyzing and displaying full scale IQ categories and EQ categories that was directly from Solovoy's model, which we study in psychology, which is a flawed EQ model. By the way, EQ doesn't exist. It's not a real concept. That's why there's so many different interpretations upon EQ and why people can't agree to one because it actually doesn't exist. So when I saw the full scale IQ stuff and the EQ stuff, I'm like, whoa, people are actually associating and ascribing these categories, these real life concepts to fictional characters. I'm like, okay. Because I did this naturally and subconsciously I would ascribe such things like CPI to like a Lelouch feat, right? But I wouldn't like do it as a hobby. I wouldn't do it as an everyday activity. And I'm like, okay, my first immediate reaction was, how do people know about this? And then what are these people like? Because surely they're intelligent human beings, right? If they know these categories and if they know how to transcribe them into certain fictional characters, right? Certainly they have to be somewhat intelligent, right? Well, I joined the community and I was beyond disappointed. I was flabbergasted and thrown aback by some of the people in this community. I immediately walk in and I see people trying to cosplay and resonate and copy the personality of Beyond Birthday. People would be hiding under the bed and thinking that they're Beyond Birthday, gathering feats on the guy, making documents on him while being under the bed because they wanted to be Beyond Birthday. I'm being dead serious. Some people do this. Crazy. And there's another guy that has a profile picture of a Sonic the Hedgehog who sits on a wheelchair eating chili dogs. There's another guy that threatens to burn down the community every other day because he has split personality disorder and an inferiority complex. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of interesting people in this community. I didn't I didn't anticipate the amount of edgy, depressed, neurotic, angst people that would be in it. But there was and there is a lot of great people in this community that I talk to on a day-to-day basis, and I'm grateful for those people. So, your question of how do I feel about joining it? Well, like I said, I felt shocked, but I also felt righteous indignation because there was people saying Takuya Yagami beats Lelouch, mellow extreme diffs Lelouch, light Yagami mid diffs Lelouch, Ayano Koji takes strategy from Lelouch, Yokoya beats Lelouch, the guy that bribed his way through Liar Game. And so seeing things like this really motivated me to, of course, usurp Lelouch to his rightful throne. But also, it made me learn a lot of things. One, this community lacks critical thinking. Two, this community is very sensitive. Three, this community cares more about the perception of their favorite character versus their own opinion of that favorite character and their enjoyment of that character. I can go on and on about the things that I've learned, but I had to be very careful on how I tread, how I introduce new ideas, and how I made my mark. But I love this community. I genuinely do. Next question. Favorite themes and philosophical elements in Code Geass. Okay, so I was actually looking at this question earlier, and I have to limit myself to only one philosophical concept slash theme because I'm gonna ramble about this question, and I want this video to be an hour long or 5 hours long. Okay, so where I'm gonna go with this, I'll go with the metaphysics of Code Geass, and I'll touch on the Geass itself. So the Geass itself is actually a manifestation of your subconscious into a tangible device that you can control. Think about that for a second. Lelouch, he had the power of the kings. His ability was to control anyone, and if you give him a command, he had to obey it. Why did he get the power of the kings? Well, it's because of his personality, it's because of his temperament, it's because of his intelligence, it's because of his very being. He received that Gias because of his righteousness, because of his resolve, because of his deep desire to obliterate Britannia and to make a world a better place for his little sister. The power of the kings implies and explicitly acknowledges that you need to possess a high level of understanding of human nature. Lelouch said it himself. He chose Gias, this is his words. He chose Gias because of human nature, because he understands humans so well, because he can command and grasp the very essence of what being a Japanese is, or being a Britannian is, what a human being is. He was their savior. I mean, come on. So, and let's talk about Mao. Mao's Gias was the ability to read minds. Why is that? Because he was so insecure, because he wanted to know what people thought about him so much. C2's was the power to make people fall in love with her because she was neglected and she wanted to know what love felt like. But all three circumstances, all three Gias users went through hell, especially Lelouch. The power of the kings, which is the most significant Gias, you're subjected to hellish conditions, to hellish circumstances, to trials and tribulations Hercules couldn't even complete nor fathom. And the transformation that Lelouch went through because of the Gias is a Nietzschean thing, the will to power. You see, if you guys remember against Lelouch versus the Emperor, okay, so the Emperor wanted to create a domain in which all human beings are one. They're one consciousness, they're one being, one entity, meaning all the experiences, all the thoughts that we all possess and think about are all shared and allocated upon each other. This means everyone will be immortal in this realm, and this takes away the human aspect of living. Lelouch rejected this fantasy land. He rejected this because he said, life without death has no meaning. It's an accumulation of experiences, which he's correct about. Living forever, everyone understanding each other, everyone knowing each other's thoughts, that's not living. We practically become demigods at that point. And the more we lose our humanity, guess what? Lelouch understood this. The less free will we possess. If we know what everyone's going to do, if we know what everyone's thinking, guess what? There is no morality anymore. There is no freedom of choice. Our free will is completely diminished at that point. Lelouch understood that. That's why he rejected the Ragnarok connection. Lelouch also understood one other thing: the importance of suffering. You see, Lelouch suffered beyond means in Code Geass. But his suffering defined him. His suffering made him who he is. The reason why he suffered so much was so he could get to the point where he is now, so he could change the world. And he really resonated with his suffering. He became one with it. He loved it. He got angry at the Emperor because he would dare to take away Lelouch's guilt with this place. He needed to have that guilt because he owed it to Euphemia. He owed it to Shirley and all the people that he's lost and all the pain that he's caused everyone and himself. And so Lelouch understood that without suffering, we can't build our character. We'll never be able to grow. It'll be a state of perpetual stagnation in this realm. Lelouch rejects this. And so him controlling the Gias, him becoming this person, this absolute person that nobody can stop, his resolve, his determination, he stopped caring about Nonali. He stopped caring about everybody else. He stopped caring about even his own desires. He only cared about world peace and to save the world. And that's because of all the hellish tribulations that he's been through, his will to power. So I think that's beautiful. And another important point is, remember, the emperor did all this because he was tired of lies. He was tired of the deceit that went on in this world. However, Lelouch was the exact opposite. Lelouch was the exact antithesis to this because all of Lelouch's actions, his very being, is built on lies and deception. The Mask of Zero, Lelouch Lamperouge, all lies. His school life, a lie. Everything about him was all a lie. Zero itself means nothing. It's zero. And so to contradict everything that Lelouch did, and he defends the concept of lying because guess what? The fact that we can lie implies free will. It implies that there is good and bad. And he defends lying and deception because he said that human beings don't lie just to lie. They lie for reasons. They lie to gain something, which is okay, which is fine. And I'm not here to argue the ethics of it. I'm just saying he's defending what he's built. He made he went so far, he made lies the truth. The Zero Requiem, Lelouch v. Britannia became a villain throughout history. He fulfilled that. And he also fulfilled Zero being the savior. So as you guys know, Emperor Charles sought the past. Schneisel went after the present. Schneisel was a light Yagami type pragmatic individual. He wanted direct effects right away. Now. He didn't care about the future. He wanted what was best now, direct effects. Lelouch, however, he gambled on humanity. He knew that after the Zero Requiem, that humanity was going to come together for the good because he believed in humanity, which is interesting because he's the one person that should not. His entire goal was to destroy the world, to obliterate Britannia. He wanted the world to burn. He stated that multiple times. He hated the world for what it did to him. But at the end, he comes together and reconciles with who he is and with the world and what humanity is. Now, that's a very Judeo Christian concept right there, and one of the most beautiful that I've seen. Okay, let's talk about the Zero Requiem real quick, which is a very philosophical element. And it's very Christ like because Lelouch took on the hatred of the world, Christ took on all the sin of the world and the hatred. And Lelouch understood that human beings need an outlet of evil. They need a Lucifer. They need a devil. They need this domain of hatred in which they can display and jettison their insecurities upon. Okay, I need to stop before I go on for 5 hours, but I promise you guys I need to make a video about this for my sake. Okay, next question. What do you think about the people that downplay Lelouch for his incredible genius with no valid arguments? I'm indifferent about it. And it's not just Lelouch, it's every other character. If people don't have valid arguments and they're just trying to belittle, diminish, disparage your favorite character, then why should you care? Why should you give their opinion credence at all? No, that's not what I'm here for. And I think it's very adorable, actually, that when people attack me, they don't actually attack me, they actually attack Lelouch, which I find to be very interesting. But as far as what do you think about them downplaying people with no valid arguments? Some of them do it, out of spite and to because they're upset that I put a certain character above the other or someone else did, right? But it's also because people are genuinely ignorant about what a valid argument is, how to construct a valid argument, how the process of analyzing or examining a complex character, a complex concept, a convoluted being, they don't know how to analyze such things. So I can't get upset at them for having opinions, actually. I genuinely cannot, by good nature, and to be intellectually honest, I cannot have any sort of negative emotions towards people because their perception, their psyche, this is the truth to them. It's really difficult to prove these people wrong because of their level of understanding, their level of comprehension at their certain level. Now, of course, there's levels to this, there's levels in everything. And I have nothing but empathy to these people. I don't get upset by them at all. And I believe that I'm obligated to help teach people, the curious people, the open minded people, the people that actually want to learn and foster a higher level of intelligence and thinking. So Yeah, that's all I have to say to that. Okay, next question. What are your top five most influential books that had the most personal impact on you? Okay, great question. One of them has to be Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment is essentially a telling of the human consciousness. You may think crime and in my Bungo Stray Dogs fans probably know about Fyodor Dostoevsky, the greatest or one of the greatest authors of all time. And you see, Crime and Punishment is an examination of the human consciousness. You may think Crime and Punishment, the title itself, is a bit bland, right? Oh, bro committed a crime, bro received man-made punishment. No, 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 no. The punishment goes beyond earthly means. It goes beyond man-made constructs. I won't spoil what the prison is. I'll probably give it away with these syllogisms, but it's very similar to what Kant taught and what a lot of philosophers teach, which is the bird trapped in the cage. You see, every human being is trapped. They're trapped by their own consciousness. They're trapped by their own morality. Except for if you're the Joker or Hannibal Lecter. But the punishment that Raskolnikov goes through is psychological hell. It's psychological frustration. It's arrogance upon the world. It's discrimination upon the human beings that interact with him. And he goes through this process after he commits this crime, this change, this metamorphosis almost. And this person, the MC, is a very smart individual. He's very brilliant. He's a law student, I believe, in college. And he goes through this metamorphosis. We see the direct psychological effects that our actions do to us. And it's brilliantly written because it's so. The reason why Dostoevsky is one of the greatest authors is because he's able to exceed and convey to us, illuminate to us the exact limitations of human beings. He's able to show us the darkest, deepest, most nihilistic approaches that one human can possibly assume. So I would recommend reading Crime and Punishment. I'm not going to go in anymore because I want you guys to read it for yourselves and get a fresh start on it. But one of the greatest psychological books of all time. Okay, the next book is called Kant's Practical Philosophy. Now, Immanuel Kant, I think, is probably he's in the top five for every single philosophical category or stat one could think of. I think he has probably the highest metacognition, if not, or one of the highest of all time. Okay, so why did this book have such a big impact on me? Do not read this book. First of all, if you're a beginner in philosophy, do not read this book. One of the most difficult philosophers to comprehend and to analyze and even counteract. Your critical thinking will shoot through the roof if you try to counteract this guy, but good luck. Good luck. Now, let me tell you guys why this guy is insane. So he believes in this thing called a moral law in pure practical reason. But first, we have to understand what the moral law is. Now, the moral law is an unconditional and universal command that applies to all rational beings. It's based on the inherent value and dignity of these rational beings, which is us. Now, the moral law isn't to fulfill personal goals, nor for the ends to justify the means. It's never about the end result for Kant. It's about the motivating factors. Okay, to further understand what the moral law is, we need to understand the concept of a maxim. So think of a maxim as this. I am to do action X within circumstance Y to bring about condition Z. The Z is our end result. X is the action, and Y is the circumstances in which our action should be justified and should be well placed. The reason we do X is because of the importance and grandeur of Y. And Z, of course, is the end result of all of that. Now, think of this as a subjective system in which we're able to make ends meet, in which we fulfill the means for an end. That's how you have to see what a maxim is. And that's a very important thing to the moral law. Okay, we're almost done here. Bear with me. This is going to blow your guys' mind at the end. Trust me, it's going to be worth it. Okay, so there's two more concepts to talk about: the universal law and Kant's formula for humanity. So, the universal law is this: An action is morally permissible if every human can commit it, can perform it without contradiction. So, for example, the use of the death note would be a contradiction to this because not every human being can use the death note. Not every human being has access to a divine notebook of hell and death, right? Okay, so the next one is the formula of humanity, which basically states that an action is morally permissible if one treats every rational being as an ends in themselves versus a means to an end. In other words, it just means that all human beings are equal. We should all treat each other with dignity, and no human being should be seen as a means to an end. Okay, we're almost done here. This is the last concept. I promise it's going to be worth it. So, the last concept is called pure practical reason. And this is a form of reasoning that Kant believes is superior to any other form of reasoning, any other empirical type of reasoning or theoretical type of reasoning. Okay, it's beyond empiricism, it's beyond the theoretical realm. And this form of reasoning is about differentiating from right and wrong. It's what gives human beings autonomy. And pure practical reason, you guys remember those maxims in which we have to assess what action we have to take in accordance to the circumstances? Well, this is our outlet to do so. This is the device, our pure practical reason, to make those sound judgments. And when all of this comes together, the universal law, the formula of humanity, and pure practical reason, we can have true meaning, we can have true freedom, and true morality. I'm going to stop there with Kant. No more. We're done with that. Okay, moving on to the next book. Next one is The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. This is the origin, I'd say the fundamental book about power, about maintaining power. Let me give you guys the quick context of this. This book is all about how to maintain power as a king and as a prince, and it gives a lot of advice that can apply to your modern day life and can have very well practical implications as well. So Machiavelli was actually exiled from Florence by Lorenzo Medici because Lorenzo thought that he would betray him or he wasn't adequate enough for his position, right? So what does Machiavelli do? He writes Lorenzo a book called The Prince, a guidebook, a handbook on how to maintain power in his position. How cool is that? All right, the next book here is The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. This book is, I think, the greatest accumulation of the different types of ologies, theology, mythology, history, metaphysics, philosophy. There's so much within this book. Okay, so basically Dante Alighieri also got exiled, just like Niccolo Machiavelli. Think about that for a second. Two of the greatest books of all time were caused by exile. That's wild. So Dante was exiled by the Roman Catholic Church this time. And what does he do? He writes essentially the greatest diss track known to human history in Dante's Inferno. What does he do? He categorizes each pope, each corrupt pope within a circle of hell. Each circle of hell representing a sin, representing some sort of dreadful and vindictive aspect of human nature, such as wrath, pride, gluttony, lust, even treachery, so on and so forth. And it's cool because it's not just the popes, but it's actually like mythological and historical figures like Achilles and Alexander the Great. He puts Achilles and Alexander the Great in the circle of wrath because those two were heartless and ambitious individuals, which is really interesting. But this is what's really cool. In the ninth circle of hell, there lies Lucifer, the devil himself, of course, right? Because the most evil entity known in known human history should be in the ninth circle. But guess who is also there with them on his shoulder? Brutus, the man that killed and assassinated Julius Caesar, the man that organized it and led that entire conspiracy against him. What does that tell you? It tells you Dante Alighieri was a man of culture and loved Julius Caesar, which he should. So I have to applaud that man for putting Brutus, who killed one of the greatest human beings in existence, to death. There's also another really funny thing in Dante's Inferno. And he puts Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates in their own separate realm. This realm is made for the people that were morally just, that were righteous, but didn't believe in the faith, didn't believe in Christ. This is really funny because he also values these three, which I commend him for also. And they can just live on in this realm, conversing with each other every day. They're not subjected to any sort of torture or hellish circumstance. And of course, the other two books is Purgatory and Paradise, which is nowhere near as good as Inferno, but are still worth reading. Paradise is basically the last one is the antithesis to Inferno. It puts people in the Bible, like Adam, um, what's his name, the biblical prophets such as Paul, Peter, and whatnot. He puts them in that realm of paradise. The next book is The Laws of Human Nature, which is just a overview and guide to human nature. It's the fundamentals of human nature. And Robert Greene is brighter than most psychologists in this sense because he's able to illuminate ideas better than almost any psychologist I've seen. He's a historian, a classicist, but he talks about a lot of psychological concepts within this book. And he uses real life historical figures to do so. He'll talk about the egoism of Napoleon and how he went too far and the downfalls of how egoism can cripple humanity. He talks about how Pericles is the closest thing to Athena and how he embodies Athena because of his rationality. And he also talks about how Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, which is one of the greatest classical books of all time, which I would also recommend reading, how she was plagued and crippled because she couldn't understand how people were envious of her. So, a lot of great stuff in that book. Highly recommend reading it. All right. The last book I'm going to talk about is The Count of Monte Cristo, which is my favorite novel of all time, and I think the greatest written book of all time. This is the greatest tale of revenge, deception, and cunning I've ever seen in my life. I need to reread this book because it's the best. It's 1,200 pages, so it's not for the faint of heart. And I don't want to get into its contents because it's very plot driven. So I'm not going to talk about it at all. Read this book. It's the greatest book of all time, the greatest novel of all time. Read The Count of Monte Cristo. I don't even want to talk about it, but just know this man, Edmond Dantes, has the strongest resolve, determination, iron will as any other character I've ever seen. He got to such a point of humanity. He reached the pinnacle. He was able to fill so many roles of humanity. But he reached this pinnacle because he was able to manifest the fact that God himself wouldn't be able to intervene with his revenge. God himself would actually help him. Divine providence would be with him. Yeah, he's insane. Read The Count of Monte Cristo. Okay, next question. What advice do you have for a student who just started psychology in university from your perspective? Okay, so my advice would be, do you even like psychology? Because a lot of psychology students, they don't really care about it. And so I assume you're passionate about psychology to ask me that question. So, hey, you already got step one done. So, step two, I would organize and assimilate what you would want to do within psychology. What are the topics that you're most interested in? For me, it was personality, it was human nature, it was behavior, it was the brain, and it was intelligence. So, figure out which aspects you want to learn about. Just thinking about it, that's like 70% of psychology right there. Think about which aspects you want to study. And if you're really serious about psychology, go beyond the academical realm and read the books that are the modern day books from the modern psychologists and even the past psychologists, actually. What am I saying? Read both on said subject. And I would say also have an end goal ready with psychology. You can't just get your 4 years and expect to get a job or something like that. I would recommend getting your master's like I am, and eventually even your PhD if you so choose. So that's what I would say. Next question. Who's your favorite debater in this community? Between three: Dax PMFT, Cento MC, and Inferno. Those three are the epitome of intelligence. They're geniuses. Especially Inferno, man. That guy is a genius. Inferno is one of the most, and the other two as well, but those three are the most respectful, open minded, resilient, and They understand the other characters really well too. They don't just spew opinions of Aya and Koji because they're part of the classroom elite community. They're not biased at all. No way. No shot. They're they're the most objective and thoughtful classroom elite fans I've seen. Especially Inferno, man. This guy Inferno, he was once having a debate on deduction between Akiyama versus Aya and Koji, and what does he do? He doesn't give a logical explanation from his own words. He doesn't provide evidence why Aya Koji takes deduction over Akiyama by using both sides. No. He sends a document on Aya Koji's induction. That somebody needs to scale that because that was genius. And you guys probably don't understand why. He sent a document to this guy because he knew that guy wasn't going to read it. It was a free get out of jail free card. Genius, my opinion. So those are my favorite debaters for sure. Next question. Next question. What is your hold on. Give me a second. Give me a second. What is your all right. I'm good. Let's keep going. What is your proudest accomplishment? I honestly don't have a proudest accomplishment. I don't view life like that. Of course, I want to accomplish things. Of course, I want to rise to the top, but I don't have a proudest accomplishment. But there's a lot of things I want to accomplish that I know I will accomplish in the future. Next question. What is the reason you joined this community? The reason I joined this community is because I love these characters. And I love what they represent. Lelouch, Light, Akiyama, William James Moriarty, so on and so forth. These characters represent potential within us. When we see Akiyama perform a genius deduction in musical chairs, assimilating the similarities between the game of musical chairs to a game of conquest, seeing that happen just inspires someone. Seeing Lelouch formulate a strategy to outwit a general viceroy who has 6 times the men as him, seeing Light Yagami formulate a plan, an inhumane plan, accounting almost everything against the world's greatest detective. I love it. And it's so cool because we can talk about it every day. And we grow closer to our potential every day talking about it because we're able to resonate with these ideas. We're able to decompose them to their essence so we can understand them better. We're able to um, revolutionize the way that we think, the way that we perform, how we behave because of these characters. And that's the reason why I'm here. Next question. Why do you love Lelouch? Okay, I need to limit myself again, or I can go on for hours. I love Lelouch because of his personality, temperament, intelligence, and his perception and his understanding in the way he acts and how he perceives events, how he perceives people, concepts. I love Lelouch because he's the Machiavellian philosopher king. Now, if you know what I'm saying, you probably just think I'm crazy for saying this. The philosopher king is this concept developed by Plato, which is basically a king that's royal, grand, considerate, most of all, rational and wise. He diminishes and disparages the concept of egoism and whatnot, which obviously contradicts Lelouch. But that's why I say he's the Machiavellian philosopher king, because Lelouch is on the extremes of both ends. One day, he can be very empathetical. He can cry for you. He can sympathize with you. On the other day, he can be the most ruthless man in the world. I love that about him. I love that he goes that far. I love his resolve, his determination. And I love that he wanted to escape the shackles of this boring, mundane life that we all are plagued by. Say what you want about what he did, but he cultivated purpose for himself. He gave himself meaning. He lived off lies and deception. He was nothing. He was zero. But the things that he's accomplished and how he did it, masterful. I love his intelligence. I love how he formulates his strategies. I love how he understands the other person. I love how egotistical he is. I love how when he was taunting Mao through his mind because he knew that Mao could read his mind. So he was saying, "You lack cunning because you've been reading minds your whole life. You couldn't think of an original thought on your own, Mao." I love that about him. I love that he says things like that. I love that he can deduce entire conversations off the basis of philosophical abstractions against Schneisel. I love that he can invoke jealousy within Mao without even being there. I love how he understands emotions so well, how he can bolster and inspire his troops by threatening to kill himself because he knows and he wants everyone else to know how confident he is within himself. I love the fact that when he realized the dangers of the Gias, when he realized the potential dangers and the dangers it had upon the world and his friends and his loved ones, what does he do? He deceives V2, an immortal being, by creating a fake room in the desert where V2 is at. He creates this fake room, and it's the room that he has in the Ashford Academy. So V2 thinks that Lelouch is in his room video calling him. But Lelouch created a whole fake room in the desert to close in his position because he knew that when V2 would answer the call, the receptors and the transmitters would go off and he would be able to pinpoint V2's exact location. And he exterminates the Gias Order. Everyone, including the innocent children. And then he'll go on and kill himself and save the entire world. Like, I love this guy. I love the complexity, the depth he has within himself. I love how he manages his troops. He's able to see the potential in everyone. He's able to use people to their utmost ability. I think that's such a great skill and such a cool thing to have. He'll lead from the front. He understands that the king needs to move first in order for his subjects to follow. He understands these innate yet distant concepts that we fail to understand. I love his elegance. I love his grandeur. I love his dramatic flair. I love his metacognition. I love how he can think 7 steps ahead, but also understand the possible downsides and plan in accordance to those downsides. I love that he accounts the most specific things within events, but with also within the human condition. I love the fact that he was prepared and went through with the fact that he was going to imprison himself for eternity with a man that he hates the most, just to get answers. This is how insane this guy is. I love how he did the obey me subjects, obey me world speech, just so he could keep propelling the idea that he's a tyrant. And he was so emotionally engaged within that role. And I love how convincing he is with it. It's wonderful. But yeah, I love his resolve. I love his determination, his mentality, how he's able to think his way throughout everything. And it gives me the false illusion that us human beings, and this applies to every character, that we can think throughout every situation, that it's possible to achieve the impossible. This is what our favorite characters do for us, and why we need to um, protect and foster these characters. And of course, I love him for all the actions that he's committed, how he built a name for himself off of lies and deceit, manipulation. And at the end, he continues with the deceit, but it's justified, it's virtuous, it's excellence. And I don't understand how people can hate this character. I don't. Whether you like me or not, this guy Lelouch is the greatest. All right, next question. What is the worst reply you've ever heard? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of replies that left me aghast. There's some replies that were so loathsome that I had to contemplate my entire existence. But I'll tell you about one of these replies, and this is actually hilarious. So it was a YouTube video about, I don't even know actually, but in the comment section, I commented something, and this guy named Reinhard, he saw me and immediately started attacking me. And he's saying that Light takes full scale IQ over the Luge. And his reasons were God. they were something. He said that light takes full scale IQ over Lelouch because light was able to invoke something called police misdirection reasoning. Now, I've studied philosophy, so there's a lot of thinking and reasoning that comes with that. I've never heard of someone say police misdirection reasoning as a point to bolster someone's full scale IQ. There was another person that thought, in the classroom elite community, of course, that thought that I made up the concept of emotional engagement to buff Lelouch. It was actually hilarious. Okay, next question. Thoughts on Yu Gi Oh? I love Yu Gi Oh! It's underrated. I would recommend watching it. It's very deep, has a lot of depth to it, more than what people think. I used to play Yu Gi Oh! Competitively when I was 18. I'll tell you a quick funny story. So when I was 18, me and my best friend Gil, we entered a Yu Gi Oh! Tournament. And this was our first one, right? And we got to the semifinals. This was like 30 people over here, right? And it was a very competitive tournament. And we got to the semifinals, and my friend Gil, he went up against a cheater, a known notorious cheater. I still remember his name. His name is Lyle. Okay, so this guy cheated, and my best friend, is very passive. He has a very passive temperament. He's a very agreeable human being, so he didn't say anything to this. He didn't confront the man. He told me about this after the game, and I'm like, wow, that's ridiculous. And I won the semifinals, so I reached the finals, and I was up against Lyle, the guy that beat my best friend through cheating. And I beat Lyle, and I beat him using a terrible deck at the time. And Lyle was using one of the best decks. The look on his face, the absolute anguish that I caused him, so worth it. I loved every minute of it. So yeah, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! And you guys should check it out one of these days. All right, next question. If you could delete one character, who would it be? Guys, come on. I wouldn't delete any character. I'm respectful towards all characters. Takia Yagami. Next question. Out of the subjects you have studied in higher education, which do you think holds the most practicality? Okay, so in terms of practicality, I'll rank them for you. So English would be number 4, classics would be number 3. You can change those if you really want. Philosophy and psychology is 1 and 2, but I can't give you a definitive order because it depends on who you are. For me, it's dead equal because philosophy teaches you how to reciprocate and formalize deadly arguments based on logic and very high abstract reasoning. Philosophy is a lot more general and metaphysical, grand, and it aims to get closer to the existence of reality, to spiritualism, to very drawn out and convoluted concepts. Where psychology is much more specific, it's much more focused on the human psyche. It's much more it's much more reliant on deductive and inductive methods where we can experiment and have a logical and objective result. And both of these will help you articulate yourself, especially philosophy, and they'll help you comprehend things a lot better. So, for example, philosophy majors have the highest VCI out of any other major in university. And that's for good reason. Because when you study philosophy, you're examining the most difficult concepts to ever exist. You're trying to formulate original ideas to ideas that are the most difficult to formalize. You're trying to counteract one of the most tough, bulletproof arguments there is, and your critical thinking will increase dramatically through this. And of course, the concept of critical thinking applies to every area of your life. So the skills you learn within these two realms literally carry on with you in every aspect of your life. Your entire perception itself changes through this. So, philosophy, I would say, is definitely there for the verbal side of things, for helping me understand things, helping me articulate myself, and helping me illuminate my ideas into a logical and cogent way. Where psychology has really helped me with other people, and psychology will help you cold read, help you psychoanalyze. You pick up on micro expressions. You'll pick up on specific things that no one else will see, you'll pick up on leakage. There's this book called Nonverbal Communication. It's a textbook. It talks about the concept of deception within it. It talks about how human beings deceive people. It actually talks about the rate and success rate of deception, and the success rate is about 60%. Think about that for a second. What does that tell you about humanity? And psychology really helps you understand human beings to their core, where philosophy helps you understand their ideologies, their general inclinations towards things. Both are very similar. Actually, psychology is a subset from philosophy, so a lot of it does intertwine. So I would say those are definitely one and two in terms of practicality. And your follow-up question, do you want to do you have any examples regarding it in your personal life? I do have examples regarding it in my personal life, but I'm not going to share with you today. So, but thank you for the question. Since you study philosophy for 4 years, what is your favorite school of thought? My favorite school of thought is epistemology, which is the examination of knowledge itself. It's knowledge of knowledge. It's how to attain proper knowledge. So that's definitely my favorite school of thought. Next question. Has the idea of psychologically analyzing ancient Greek and ancient Roman historical figures ever crossed your mind? Yeah, it has actually. I've analyzed Alcibiades and Pericles before, but I haven't truly conveyed it to you guys. If you guys are interested in me psychoanalyzing historical figures or even modern day figures, let me know. I can show you guys my process and the whereabout of how such things manifest. What's your preference for picking a character to debate? I have no preference. Who are your favorite characters in this community? Lelouch, obviously. Light, William James Moriarty, and Akiyama are probably my favorite right now. Yuichi, too. What's the best category in outsmarting? There is no best category in outsmarting. Now, a lot of people will argue, and I don't blame them for arguing this, which would be strategy and planning, right? Because a lot of outsmarting is contingent upon those things. But I would say the best category in outsmarting is whatever the person you're analyzing or using for said debate is best at. The best category for outsmarting for Al Lawlet would be his logical reasoning. It wouldn't make sense to ascribe and make L obligated to strategy and planning. Johann would be his manipulation. Lelouch would be his strategy and planning. Akiyama would be his strategy. But it's dependent on what that character is best in. I don't like having fixed categories as best. I do think that there's certain categories that are more important than others. For example, strategy planning, anticipation, FSIQ, EQ, deception. Things of this are obviously more important than something like catfishing or connecting the dots, which are arbitrary. But the best category in outsmarting is whatever that character is best at. And to the people that say strategy and planning, which is fair, but first of all, can you guys differentiate strategy and planning? First of all, do that. And then strategy specifically, okay, define what strategy is. Because guess what? Strategy is accomplishing an ends or a goal. Do you understand how ambiguous that is? Strategy applies to every single character in this community, even El Lawlet or someone like Yuichi. It's just people don't know how to analyze strategy yet. So I would be careful in constructing the best categories in outsmarting. And I would focus on constructing the best categories within certain characters first. And then we can start categorizing categories in themselves. Okay, next question. Best literature to be an educated, knowledgeable person in. There is no best literature. There is no subset of knowledge that you can attain to become a knowledgeable or educated person. There's levels to this. It's all on a spectrum. I'm nowhere near as someone as Jordan Peterson. I'm nothing compared to him and his level of expertise in psychology, in epistemology, in literature, in history, in science, in all of these subjects. I'm nowhere near him. But that's a motivating factor because I do want to get there one day. And what you do is you figure out what you want to study. First of all, you figure out what you even want to learn, and you learn every single day. You have to have humility in the sense where you have to understand where you're at in life, where you're at in your learning process. So to be a knowledgeable person is, I would say, figure out what you want to learn in the first place, find educated people on YouTube or better yet in real life, and listen how listen to what they have to say about said subjects. All right, next question. How do you go about controversy in general? How I go about controversy in general is as a writer. Robert Greene talks about this. Why do I say a writer? Writer because I have to understand from a third person point of view of why this person is acting the way that they're acting. Why are they spiteful towards me? Why are they hateful towards me? Why are they trying to deter what I'm trying to accomplish? And if you look at that from a non-emotional perspective, you can really start understanding people. You can really start empathizing with people and getting them to your side. And so I like to think as a writer because writers, they're obligated to objectively portray their characters in the sense they want to portray them for who they are. And that's how I like to look at people and controversy. What are your future expectations for this community? Sky's the limit. Infinite potential. This community will inexorably reach its peak. And its peak is higher and more grand than anything you guys can possibly think of. It's paramount to understand if we come together, we can make this community insane. The concept of outsmarting, the characters we analyze, the methodologies in which we use, the processes in which we exemplify, how we excavate different ideas, how we fathom, how we comprehend, how we perceive such ideas. It has such direct implications to everything in our lives. Guys, when I say this community has infinite potential, I mean it. I'm excited to see how this community grows, and I will definitely be one of the pioneers that make this community into its full potential. And I'm grateful for the people that are here. I'm grateful for you guys because the people that comment on my YouTube videos, the people that show support, you guys are the ones that are curious. You guys are the intellectuals that want to be honest, that want to grow, that want to foster something special. You guys are the ones you guys are the reason why I'm here. And so I need as many of you with me in order to accomplish this goal. And we will accomplish this goal. And when it happens, it's going to be awesome. And the journey throughout will be one of the most beautiful things we ever accomplish in life, guys. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. There's a few more questions I could have answered, but I'm a bit tired and I want to take a break. And I don't want to make this video 5 hours long. But I have one last announcement to make. I'm planning on making scaling one-on-one videos for intelligence and outsmarting. This is going to be there to help you guys scale. This is going to be there to help you guys interpret feats and to give you guys bulletproof feats, to give you guys the true interpretations, the objective reality in which how we should analyze these characters, the methodologies in which I go about analyzing characters. This is going to benefit everyone in this community. And this isn't here to establish, oh, X is above Y. No, my character is smarter than yours. No, no, no. Actually, the exact opposite. It's actually to foster and cultivate more thinking, more perspectives, and critical thinking upon our own characters and other characters, to have understanding with each other, to have understanding of the other characters that we can so often neglect. And these scaling 101 videos will consist of things of how to scale full scale IQ, how to scale EQ, what is manipulation exactly, what is strategy and planning, how do you scale such things. It's going to help you guys tremendously. And one more thing, I'm also going to make videos on characters like Johann, Lelouch, Light, Yuichi, and so on and so forth. I'm going to make videos analyzing their intelligence just for themselves, not editing one above the other. No, giving you guys direct feats from each character and analyzing them to their essence, analyzing them to how they're supposed to be manifested throughout the world. And this is going to help you guys scale. This is going to help you guys determine, okay, who is above the other. And it's going to show an appreciation for the character themselves. So I'm really excited for this. And let me know if you guys are excited for this as well. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. See ya.